stay here. You can stay here at Midian, and I got a job for you. And you got to be thinking, if you Moses, like, wow, like, what job you got for me? You gonna have me second in command? You gonna have me in command? You can just sit down. What you gonna have me do? I do this. I've been going to school for this. I can command and stuff like that. And Jethro's like, well, it's something like that. I want you to lead. I got you. I want you to lead. I got that part. I got you right there. However, I want you to lead. Sheep. You said, huh? You said people? No, sheep. No, I need you to lead sheep. A sheep herder. I want the once king or prince of Egypt, getting ready to be the Pharaoh, to be a sheep herder. To be around sheep. Like, I want you to walk with those things. Like, I want you to talk to those things. I want you to watch them drink and eat and all that stuff. That's what I want you to do, Moses. That's what I want you to do. Are you for real? A shepherd. Moses is at the prime, basically, of his life. 40 years in Egypt, and now he was about to be, man, the Pharaoh. He's up here educated. People, he don't gotta work for anybody. People was working for him. He was walking around the palace. He had everything, and you want him to be a shepherd? What? Like, you guys, all this just grabs your minds around this. This man has never in his life probably dreamed of ever being a shepherd. Never in his entire life dreamed of being a shepherd. However, God takes this person. He takes this person and he says, look, I want you to be a sheep herder. What do you feel? How do you feel when, or what happens when you're placed in a situation in which you think that you are above? What happens when you're placed in a situation in which, when God places you in a situation that you think you are above? You think you're overqualified? You think you're too dignified for this? You think that you shouldn't even be doing this? It feels like chores and you helping somebody out, but God has placed you right there. Moses had to wake up every morning. He had to watch the sheep. He had to watch the sheep go out to pasture, go and eat grass. He just had to watch them. For the longest time, just all these sheep. And then he had to go and he had to lead them to drink and things like that. And so sometimes he had to bring them to a running stream, and sometimes he had to dig. I get manicures. I gotta dig now. He has to dig wells sometimes if they didn't have access to water. At night he had to go and he had to count them and make sure everything was good, everything was well. Oh man, 100 sheep, I didn't know I had that. And if one was to leave, he would have to go and find that, Because sometimes you can tell sheep, this is the right place to be, but sometimes they'll just end up, on the missing sheep list. And Moses, he couldn't go and start talking about that sheep behind that sheep's back to the other sheep that decides to stay. No, he had to go and he had to find that one sheep. He had to go and he had to find that one sheep. He had to go and he had to find that one sheep. He couldn't just go and sit back and say, oh man, I told you about those sheep, man. They be just out there. Little God, did he know that God was doing something amazing in his life.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes God will place you in situations in which you are overqualified, in which you are underestimated and overworked, and he will smile. And he will smile not because of the position where he's placed you, but he'll smile because of the person that he's making out of you.
Yes. Amen.
Moses, he's thinking that he's just watching sheep eat. That's all he thinks he's doing. But God, he's producing somebody that's going to pay attention. thinks he's just waiting on sheep, but God is producing patience for some knucklehead Israelite. Moses thinks he's just digging up wells, but God is producing the heart of somebody who's going to provide for his people. Just like when you think that you're just living with a family that's always on your nerves, but God is producing a person that can't easily be annoyed. You think that you're just working a dead-end job while God is preparing a person in you who actually likes to work. Because at first you were so lazy that when you heard the word work, you would go to sleep. You think that you're suffering from that horrible relationship, but God is producing a person that can spot a clown a mile away. We need to stop looking at our deserts as our problems, but as God using this opportunity to do something in our lives that he could not do if you were anywhere else. But I believe, please believe, that as much as God is working, Satan is working as well. And you can only imagine the words that Satan was saying to Moses as he's going through this situation. You a sheep herder? This the person they was talking about? Oh, they said he was going to deliver, you was going to deliver people, right? Like, what happened with that? Is that like a little, what you doing with those sheep? Are you going to deliver them with the sheep? How are you going to do that? Moses right now, he's in his mind a has-been. He's a has-been. But God uses this situation. It's crazy because people's perspective of what you're going through and what you're doing, stuff like that, like it gets difficult at times. I remember when I had a similar situation and I was in college. I think it was like my first year at Oakwood University, and I went to college and everybody around St. Louis, they was like, oh man, Q, he went out of town. Not only did he go to a college, but he went to a college out of town. That was a big thing for us. And so I'll be walking around, people see pictures of me on Facebook, you know, being at college and stuff like that. So when I came back, I was like, hey y'all, what's up? They was like, oh, big football star. I just went to college, it wasn't nothing there, you know. It was like, oh, big Q, big Q. I'm like, yeah. People like down the street, hey baby. I'm like, yeah. All that stuff, I never messed them. And I used to work, before I came to Oakwood, I used to work at this, I used to work at the YMCA in St. Louis. I used to work at the YMCA in St. Louis. And I used to work helping out with like the different fitness equipment. I'll clean up the equipment, I'll be there to help people go in and stuff like that. And that was amazing, man, because I was just like, you know, I come in, you know, I have my shirt on, you know, probably some shorts, some like nice kicks, and I'll just be seeing people, and I'll be like, oh, hey, how y'all doing? Q got that cool job, and he gets to go to college and all that stuff. But then I came back after that first year in Oakwood. I needed a job. So I came back and I was hoping that they still had my position available. So I came back and I was like, you know, I just want to come back, you know, for my position. Y'all said come back anytime and stuff like that. And they said, oh yeah, sure. All right, we have an issue. You can work, but we don't have that position ready for you. I was like, okay, it's nothing. What y'all want me to do? Y'all want me to lifeguard, you know, something like that, you know, I can swim. You know, do something like that. Y'all want me to be with the kids, you know, daycare or something. It was like, not exactly. We kind of want you to clean toilets. And I was like, oh. It's like you don't know what to say at that time. You're just like, oh. But you say, oh, just so you let them know that you heard it. And I said, all right, I'll do it. I'm down. During those months when I was in St. Louis, it was one of the most embarrassing times, but also one of the most powerful times of my life. I saw some of my friends that I graduated from high school with, these big companies and stuff like that. They were members of the YMCA, so they'll come through and work out and stuff. And they would see me like washing and cleaning the toilets. And so before they come, I'll try to hide. I'll be like, oh man, I'll be coming out. Oh man. I'll wait until they turn to the sauna, and then I'll walk out like, oh man, all right, this is good. You know, and so all that will happen constantly. I'll be hiding from people. And eventually, man, God had to stop me, man. He had to stop me. And he said, Q, man, I prepared Joseph to be second hand in Egypt while he was in prison being falsely accused. I prepared David to be a king while he was playing music for Saul, somebody trying to kill him. And I prepared Jesus to save the world while he was making chairs as a carpenter. Surely I can do something out of your life while you're cleaning toilets. And some of us have to realize that in our desert situations currently. Sometimes our desert situations look like we're in a drought, we're not going to make it. Sometimes we're so discouraged by our desert that we never get to our destiny because we think our desert is all there is for us. But God is here, and God uses those situations to make the best out of us. He brings out amazing people through humble beginnings. And so you have Moses right here. Shepherd. Should be a prince, should be doing something lovely and lavish in Egypt. But he's here. He's sitting down here with these sheep and watching them constantly. And eventually, Moses, he walks around this mountain. He's been around this mountain for some time. He always walks around this mountain with the sheep every now and then. This man has been with these sheep for 40 years. 40 years in Egypt and 40 years in the desert. He's 80 years old. And he walks up and he sees this burning bush. However, the thing that intrigues Moses is not that it's burning, because it's quite normal for that to happen in that region, for bushes to start, to catch fire, or it'd be very hot and stuff like that. However, he was intrigued that even though the environment caused this bush to burn, the environment did not cause it to be consumed. He says, wow, look at this bush is burning, but it's not fully out. It's not fully burned. It's not fully consumed. And isn't that the essence of God sometimes? Isn't that the essence of God sometimes? God, through the Bible, back and forth, you can go and flip to almost any kind of story, but you will constantly see the story of people who have been through the fire, but they have not been consumed. They've been through trials, but somehow they make it. It's a whole scripture that says, man, we're crushed, but we're not consumed, or we're forsaken, but we're not cast away, or whatnot. He talks about these situations in which we are hurt, we are afflicted, we are pressed from each side, but we're not crushed. We're not taken fully out. We can be affected by our environment, but our environment does not consume us. Our environment does not snuff us out. Our environment does not kill us. This Moses, that even though he's a fugitive, he's not dead. Even though he's out here, he doesn't know the survival skills of being out here in the desert. He hasn't had to live out in the desert, but he's still here. This Moses, that even though he's having these difficulties and these trials, he is still alive. He sees this burning bush. It's amazing how God can see us when we're depressed, when our loved one dies, but we're not consumed. When we throw in the towel, we think we're throwing in the towel after we had that child out of wedlock, and we forget about our dreams, but we're not consumed. We could have stopped our plans and aspirations when they talked and laughed at us, but we were not consumed. Man, God has an amazing way of allowing us to be in our environment, but not allowing our environment to overtake us. God, he talks to Moses. And it's crazy because this is another danger of the desert situation. God talks to Moses and he says, look, Moses, I want you to free the people. I want you to be the instrument that I use to free the people out of Egypt. And after 40 years, Moses, he looks at this burning bush. He looks at the voice of God. He talks back to God and he says, who am I? One of our biggest issues with our desert situation is that we believe we belong. We begin to believe that we belong in the desert. Moses, the person who was so gung-ho and so focused on causing this whole liberation and overthrowing the government, almost to the point where he would kill somebody. Now he's like, who am I? Man, I can't do that. I already tried it once. I messed up. I tried it once and it got me here with sheep. I don't want to try it again. I don't know where it's going to get me. It's amazing how sometimes our desert, man, it can get into our minds in which we believe that's where we belong. However, God, he does something amazing. God doesn't say, oh man, you're this, you're that, you're that. Because Moses is right. Who isn't he? He disrespected, basically, God. He didn't listen for God's advice. He didn't come to God. He's been out with shepherds. He's been out, being a shepherd and things like that. He never came to God. And all this situation occurred. He's not anything. He's not nobody to help these people out. But God, instead of pointing to him and how great he is, he points to how great he is. He says, look, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be with you. If you've ever been in that situation with the desert, and the crazy part about the desert experience that I saw reading this is that, man, his desert experience was 40 years old. He went through his desert experience for 40 years. I don't know how many of us and how long we've been in our desert situations. Some of us have probably been in our desert situations seem like our entire lives. However, when you ever get tempted to think that you are what your struggle is, begin to believe and begin to think about how good God is. Amen. I've read this, and the entire situation with the desert experience, I read it and I asked myself, and God, why did you bring him through this situation? And I was reading Ellen White about Moses, and she said something very profound that many of you guys already know from just reading the Bible and seeing how things happen with Moses. But man, she says that through the experience of Moses being in the desert, it prepared him to lead the children of Israel out of the wilderness. Because you can't lead nobody through something that you haven't been through yourself. Sometimes God will bring you through situations not because of you. Just take time to think about and put it in your mind that life is not about you all the time. Sometimes God will allow you to go through situations, go through trials, go through areas of life. He'll allow you to go through deserts so that you can help somebody else out. Because somebody else needs liberation. And they need help throughout the wilderness. And first he has to get you in the wilderness and through the wilderness so you can show somebody else out. God, he does that. Ellen White, she says, man, through him being a shepherd, him being there and flocking and attending to the sheep and watching him, and because he was sitting down watching the sheep, now he can watch humans. He can make sure that he's accountable for them. Now when one human gets so frustrated and riled up that they want to leave, he can go back and look for that one person and try to resolve some kind of peace or something with them, instead of going and talking about that person or getting frustrated himself. He can be a provider for those people because that's what he had been doing for 40 years of his life. 40 years of his life. God had prepared him for that situation. It reminds me of a situation, of a situation or a story. This guy, many of you guys know Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, he had, let me move this up real quick, guys. Steve Jobs, he was speaking at a graduation. He was giving the story of how Apple was created and things like that. And he was giving a story on how Apple created and things like that. And Steve Jobs drops out of college. He starts off basically talking about how he's dropping out of college. Now, mind you, he's at like college graduation. But he says like, man, I dropped out of college, but this is one of the ways that Apple really got big and really got famous. He dropped out of school, he dropped out of college, but he remained at a certain class. He would go and he would walk into the class. It was a calligraphy class, basically talking about different fonts and stuff like that. And so he would just go to this class. He really liked calligraphy. He loved like drawing and stuff like that. He loved this thing with the different fonts. And so he comes and he learns so much about these fonts. He goes to this class. Now at this time, he does not know at all that this is going to help him out in his business. He doesn't know at all this is going to help him out with computers. He doesn't know at all. He's like, oh my goodness, it's a calligraphy class. I'm in it, and I'm just going and I'm attending the class. Eventually, he starts on computers, and he sees the computers, and he says, man, what if we put different fonts in these computers? the different fonts to the computers, and people are seeing computers in a totally different way because they're like, oh my goodness, man, you can do Times New Roman, you can do Comic Sans, you can do all these different fonts in this particular computer. And from a situation in which Steve Jobs thought that was completely irrelevant to his particular job, his duty, and his burden, he ended up creating type font. Right now, you would probably be typing in just one regular font if it wasn't for Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs did not know how that happened. When people asked him, he was like, man, I was in this one class. And I did not know how it was going to relate to me making computers, but I was in this one class. I just want to tell you in leaving that God places us in classes. God places us in lessons that sometimes are so difficult, sometimes are so pressing to us. And sometimes we ask ourselves, man, why is this in my life? Because right now I'm looking at it, it's so irrelevant to me being a doctor. It's so irrelevant to me helping out youth. It's so irrelevant to me being a teacher. It's so irrelevant for me being an elder. I don't see, God, why you have this in my life. It's like you just popped it right there, and I just got to go through trials because I'm a Christian. I just got to go through trials just because I'm a Christian. But God uses those situations because one day somebody's going to say, man, you minister in a different way. Why do you minister like that? Man, you love in a different way. Why do you love people like that? How do you talk to people like that? And you'll be like, man, I took this one class. I took this one class called being a single parent. I took this one class called having no money and unemployment. I took this one class called disappointment and rejection. I took this one class called having all your friends betray you. I took this one class called a loved one dying. I took this one class called all my dreams being crushed. I took this one class. And Moses took this one class. It was a long class. But that one class helped him out amazingly to be an amazing leader. It humbled him. And so now when God brings Moses through, Moses has a mission, but Moses is one of the main people with this mission in his mind that knows the language of the Egyptians. Not only does he know the language of the Egyptians, but he can connect with the Israelites. Not only can he connect with the Israelites, but he's worked in the field as a shepherd and things like that. He knows what hard work is. When somebody comes to him, they're like, man, how are we going to make it through this wilderness? You'll make it.